Hello everyone, namaste, this is Nikita, and can you believe I am finally posting tutorials on YouTube, and I have been waiting for this since so long. One major reason being that whatever I have learned about art, most of it I owe it to the great artists who post such amazing content on YouTube, and this is my way of giving back to the art community. And today's topic is very interesting. It's the most requested topic till date. So we'll be mixing skin tones, different kinds of skin tones, using just 3 colors, the 3 primary colors. And I do have planned all the topics for rest of the month, so I'll be posting a video every week. In case you have any suggestion, any request, don't forget to drop a comment below, and yes, do subscribe to my channel. Let's start with the tutorial. Okay, I'll be painting these cuties today, but before that, let's study a little bit about color mixing. So the colors that we'll be using for the skin tones are the 3 primary colors, namely Crimson Lake, Phthalo Blue, and then Lemon Yellow. So it is important to note down the names of these colors because here today we're using cool primary colors. This is a cool red, a cool blue, and then a cool yellow. So in case you don't have Crimson Lake, you can take quinacridone rose, permanent rose, carmine, or any pinkish kind of color. In case you don't have Phthalo Blue, you can take cerulean blue, or you can take very diluted Prussian blue. For lemon yellow, I don't think there's a substitute for cool yellow. I think lemon yellow would be the best option, and I think it's very commonly available. So it's important to note down the color temperature of the primary colors that we are using today. It's a very pinkish red. It's not a normal neutral red color that we usually pick up for primaries. And this is a lemon yellow, which is a very light and a very bright yellow. It should not go towards the orange side. It should not be an Indian yellow or gamboge hue or cadmium yellow. So very important to pick up the right kind of primaries. And then your blue is like a very cool blue, like a turquoise kind of blue. It's not something similar to ultramarine blue, which is more on the violet side. Okay, so it's important to pick up the primary colors of the right color temperature. That is when you'll get the perfect skin tones using the recipes that I'll be sharing just now. Okay, so we all know that we can mix up any color in the world using the 3 primaries, the red, blue, and yellow color. Okay, so we'll be using the same concept, we'll be applying the same concept to build up our skin tones as well. Okay, so I'll start with a very light peachy color. So I'll be mixing these colors on the paper itself so that you can see the actual color that we are getting. I'll also mention the proportions with you so that you can note it down. It's very important to keep in mind the proportions as well, like how much of both the colors we're mixing together to get the perfect shade. So here I've taken lemon yellow, and here I'm taking Crimson Lake. And it is a very light skin tone, so I've taken a lot of water. And you can see that instead of getting a very bright orange, we are ending up with a very peachy kind of color. Maybe I can add a little more of Crimson Lake into this. So here the lemon yellow and Crimson Lake are equal in proportion, 50-50 ratio, and we get a very fair skin color. Now if I change the proportion a bit, maybe take more of the lemon yellow and a little lesser of the Crimson Lake, you will get a slightly warmer skin tone, still a peachy color but slightly warmer than the previous one. So this way you can change the proportions of your primaries and you can build up different kinds of skin tones. I'll just take a little more of the lemon yellow. So this proportion could be approximately 70% yellow and 30% crimson. Now if I do the opposite, if I take more of the crimson and less of the lemon yellow, you'll see that it's going to be a very cool or almost like a red shade. If I dilute it, then it's going to look like a light skin tone. More on the pink side this time. Okay, so this is 70% crimson and 30% lemon yellow. So this way you can differ the ratios of your primaries and build up your skin tones. Now let's say that you want to move towards medium skin tones like wheatish Indian kind of skin color. So what will you do to darken the orange skin tone, the orange color that you get by mixing the yellow and the red? Or the peachy color, how do you desaturate it? You will have to add a little bit of blue here. A very tiny amount of blue is going to suddenly desaturate your orange and make it like a brown. So what I'm going to do in the center is I'll mix up a perfect brown skin tone. So what I'll do here is I'll start off with an orange. I'll take Crimson Lake. This time I'm taking lesser water because we're going for a slightly darker skin tone. And then lemon yellow. So here you end up with an orange. Now how do I desaturate it? You have to be very careful while adding the blue here. The blue has to be very tiny, okay? So I'm just very gently touching my brush on the blue paint and then I'm adding it. Maybe a little bit more. So here you can see that the blue has desaturated our pigment. Now I feel that this one has a lot of water in it, so I'll just quickly add more pigment into it to darken the value. Okay, so here you end up with a perfect burnt sienna kind of skin tone, like a perfect brown skin tone. Now you can alter the ratios. Like I feel that it's looking very pale, so I'm taking yellow and adding it to it. If I feel that it's going more on the blue side, then I'll add more of the yellow and pink. If I feel it's going more on the pink side, I'll add more of the yellow and a little bit of the blue. So this way you can alter the color temperature of your skin tones by adding either of the three primary colors. Okay, so here we have a very neutral brown color, brown skin tone. Now let's say that we want to go for a slightly reddish skin tone. So here maybe we can say that the proportion over here in this brown color is mostly like it's 40% crimson, 40% yellow and 20% blue. So you can tell that the ratio of the orange that we got from the crimson and lemon yellow is like 80:20. So this one sums up to be 80% and the blue is only 20%. So now you can compare the ratio of all the three colors. So here I've written down all the ratios so that you can take notes and make swatches along with the video, and you can see for yourself how by just changing the proportions by a bit, also the color, the swatch changes by a lot. Okay, now we'll go for a slightly reddish skin tone. So what I'll do here is I'll take a little more of the crimson. I'll take all the three colors, but I'll increase the proportion of crimson this time and decrease the yellow. Okay, so here you can see a almost red kind of color, and then I'm taking blue. Have to be very careful while adding the blue so that it does not make everything super pale. Okay, so here you can see it has turned very pale right now. It almost looks gray. So this is what is very normal while you're mixing your colors. You may end up with a proportion which you do not like or which you did not desire for. So what do you do in this case? You just add more of the other two colors. So I'll go to the crimson, take more of the crimson here. Now it looks like a violet, and then I'll take more of the lemon yellow. So this is what is needed. Like it's very necessary to keep experimenting with your skin tones. Like if you are not ending up with the right color, just pick up the other two colors, see if you're getting the shade that you desired for. So here you can see it's a very burgundy kind of color, like a pinkish brown kind of color. So here the difference in this proportion and in this proportion is that we have taken more of the crimson and less of the yellow. The blue is the same. Okay, so maybe we can say that I've taken 65% of crimson, or let's say 60% crimson, and then 20% yellow and 20% blue. Then we'll go towards a slightly warmer blue. Okay, so I'm going closer to the yellow that I've marked over here, and here I'm increasing the yellow proportion, decreasing the crimson. So now unlike this one, we end up with a bright orange instead of a reddish color by mixing the two, the reds and the yellows. So here I'm taking phthalo blue, and you can already see a green coming up. That is because we have taken more of the yellow and the blue. So I do not like this green, so what I'll do is I'll go back to my crimson. I'll add more of the crimson until I end up with a paler version or a slightly warmer version of this brown color. Okay, so this experimenting is very, very important when you are doing color mixing, be it skin tones or be it any other subject that you're doing. It's very important to experiment with your colors. It's important to experiment with your proportions basically. Okay, so here we have a very pale brown, 60% yellow, 20% crimson and 20% blue. Now what we'll do as we move closer to the blue is we'll start adding more and more of the blue and maybe less of the warmer colors, and we'll get slightly darker skin tones. Okay, so as we add more of the cool colors in our mixes, we end up with darker skin tones. So now this was the fair skin tone, this was the medium, and now we'll move towards the dark skin tones. So for darker skin tones, obviously you will have to take lesser water. So I'm taking thick pigment this time, and here I'm taking crimson first. Okay, and then lemon yellow. And then, so this is more of the crimson, less of the lemon yellow. And then I'm taking blue this time. I'm increasing the proportion of blue. So it suddenly looks like a black or a violet kind of color. So that means I have taken more of the blue. I'll take more of the crimson. And then some more of the lemon yellow. Okay, maybe a bit of the blue as the last step. So here you can see you are getting a paler version of this brown. Maybe if I take more of the yellow, looks like a pale version of this brown. The only difference is that we have increased the proportion of the blue and decreased the proportion of the yellow and red. Okay, so this is 30% crimson, 40% yellow and 30% blue. One thing you need to keep in mind is that yellow is a very light pigment. Okay, so always to bring out the brightness of the yellow in your browns, you will have to add more of the yellow. And since the crimson and especially this blue is very pigmented, so you will need very little of this blue to bring out the paleness of the coolness of the blue in your brown. Okay, so always make sure that these proportions are based on the lightness and the darkness of the pigments as well. Now what we'll do is we'll take more of the crimson and blue over here. Okay, you can see I'm getting a very vibrant violet using the crimson and the blue, and then I'll add yellow to it, the complementary color of violet. And here you can see I end up with a darker version of this color. Okay, so if I add more of the blue here, probably I added way too much, and just to correct this, I'll add more of the crimson and the lemon yellow. Here you end up with a very grayish and a very pale, like a shadow color on the skin. Okay, this is 40% blue, 40% crimson and 30% of the yellow. Okay, now we'll mix up a slightly greenish kind of skin color, or a greenish brown kind of color, where we're taking more of the yellow and blue. Okay, you can see we end up with a very bright green over here. How to desaturate that green? Just add a little bit of red, the crimson lake. Maybe we added too much of the crimson. So how do you correct that? You go back to your blue and your yellow, and then lastly add a tiny hint of the crimson to your skin color. It's like a greenish gray, a greenish brown kind of color, a very earthy color. This kind of a skin tone goes well for the Indian dark skin tones. So this one has 30% blue, 40% yellow and 30% crimson. This was a little introduction about the color mixing using the 3 primary colors. You can basically achieve any kind of skin color using the 3 primaries. You can even get a black by taking really thick quantities of your primary colors, and you can end up with a black color which you can use for the hair, for the eyebrows, for your eyelashes, all of that. Now let's start off with painting these 3 baby portraits in fair, medium and darker skin tones. So for the fair skin tone, you can see that the skin color that I've mixed is mostly crimson, like 70% crimson and 30% lemon yellow. I haven't used any blue in the skin color here because it's a very fair skin color and blue is going to make it very pale. Now the technique that I've mostly used here is wet on wet to get that smooth blend on the skin. For the blonde hair, I have taken 70% lemon yellow and 30% crimson, maybe a little bit of blue in the shadow areas to get a brown kind of color. Okay, so whenever you want to go from orange to brown, you just have to add a little bit of blue to your orange. Now moving on to the medium skin tone, here also I am doing wet on wet, and the skin color that I have made is using 50% yellow and 50% crimson. Now as we move on from the skin to the hair color, I have added more of the crimson and blue in the hair color and less of the yellow to make a slightly pinkish brown. As you can see in the reference, it has a slight violet tint. Now in the second layer also I am doing wet on wet, but you can see a very orangish skin color. So here I've taken 50% yellow, 40% crimson and 10% blue. You can take note of these color recipes that I'm sharing right now so that you don't forget it later. Now for the hair, you can see that it has a very violet brown kind of color. So you can mix a violet by taking blue and red and then add a little bit of yellow to it so that you end up with a violet brown kind of mixture. In the darker areas of the hair, I've added more of the blue to make it like a Payne's gray kind of color. Now moving on to the darker skin tone, you can see that the reference has a very orangish tint to it. On the left side, it's a little paler. So for the base color, I have taken yellow plus crimson and a tiny bit of blue to it. Okay, so it's mostly like 50% yellow, 40% crimson and 10% blue. On the left side, you can see I'm adding a slightly purplish brown kind of color on the left side of her face. So it's more like 60% crimson, 20% yellow and 20% blue for the shadow areas. Now for the hair, you can see that I'm adding a very blackish color. So here it is 40% blue, 40% crimson and 30% yellow. Now I'm adding up the layers on her skin to make it a little darker. I'm building up the layers. So here I'm adding the warmer colors again, yellow plus crimson and a tiny bit of blue for the orange areas, for the warmer areas. And then for the shadow areas, again I'm adding another layer of the shadow color, which is like a violet brown kind of mixture, which has 60% crimson, 20% yellow and 20% blue. So this is it for today's tutorial. I really hope that you enjoyed it and you found it informative. One little thing that I wanted to mention about the paints, the brand of paints that I've been using since few months. It is called Aquatone paints. It is a made in India brand, and all the 3 primaries that I use today are from Aquatone only. I'll be linking the website in the description box. You can get 10% discount if you use the code Nikita10. I'll be mentioning all of it in the description. So do check it out. These paints are amazing. They're artist quality paint. They're light fast, and I personally love them. You are going to be seeing these paints in almost all the tutorials. Have a nice day. Bye.